going to tell you guys right now, whoever could go toe-to-toe with me, head-to-head, push-up to push-up, let's get it. Let me be quiet and go in my own house that I earned with my blood, my sweat, and my tears.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. Doing things a little bit differently today because Mark is out of town, 4th of July camping. So I brought in two of my good buddies from work. You guys have all seen Justin Bridges before. And first time in studio, Dave Neher. Thanks for coming in and filling in. You guys, I appreciate it. We got some cool topics to talk to you guys about, some trending news stories that are coming up, a body cam footage that we're going to watch and we're going to talk about. But this is going to be an exciting episode. Dave has a super unique career, which is actually really cool, and I'm going to let him share the story. But before we get started, we're going to be doing another giveaway, so let me grab it for you. All right, we're going to be doing another Medic Box giveaway. You guys, these have been super popular. Drop a comment in the video, you guys, and that's all you have to do to automatically enter a chance to win. And I'm even going to throw in some extra gauze here that Medic Box sent us. And I'm going to be throwing in some brand new First tactical gloves, all in the box. You guys don't miss out on your chance to win it. We'll mail it straight to you. Justin said he's going to pay for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So jump on it, drop a comment in the video, and automatically enter a chance to win. All right. Justin's been in studio before. You guys have all probably seen him here. This is Dave's first time. Dave, I want to talk real quick about your career because it is pretty unique. We all joke as your friends about you are the only guy that we know that self-demotes. You've self-demoted yourself more than anybody I've ever met in this career. So you started out as an officer at a smaller agency. What year did you start?
08.
Okay, so 2008. And then lateral to the agency that we all three work at now. And what
was your rank when you left your first department?
Sergeant.
Yeah, so you were a sergeant at your first agency, lateral to where we are now as an officer. So that was your first demotion by you. Nothing bad, just so everybody's aware. And then promoted to sergeant where we're at. And then you decided to move to the state of Washington 3 years ago?
3 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so as an officer, so you demoted yourself again.
It's a sickness.
Okay, and then went to an agency in a state that has completely new laws and different laws in California, which we'll get into. You then were able to promote straight from officer to lieutenant. So you bypassed sergeant because you'd already done time as a sergeant and you qualified and all that.
Right.
And then went to commander.
Correct.
Yeah, commander, deputy chief, and then you were the interim chief before coming back to California and now as a sergeant again. So I want to talk about, and the three of us were talking about what it's like to be at the top now that you've experienced it. You're come back down as a sergeant, which you seem to enjoy.
Love it.
Which I couldn't agree more. Can you walk us a little bit through of what that was like going to a different state, whole new laws? Everybody probably knows a lot about Washington. It's different. Even way more drastic than California. Getting to the top, what that was like, and then now doing what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot to unpack from there. As you mentioned, I've been in a position where I put myself in a predicament where I self-demoted 3 times now. So definitely have a unique perspective as to what the job's like. Now, if I can only translate over to making a normal looking resume, that would be good. So if anyone can help me with that, I would appreciate it because I look like a fugitive from justice.
Yeah, how do you even explain all that?
Yeah, explain that one, buddy.
It's difficult. So, yeah, with that being said, have been fortunate. I've had a great career here in the state of California. 3 years ago, the family and I decided to have a little bit of wanderlust and kind of go out of state. We're big into the outdoors. We found a spot in Washington that was able to really kind of meet our needs. Still be a cop, still, work in the profession. But unbeknownst to me, as soon as I got there, that state had the most wild and extreme police reform nationwide. So coming from California, I was always under the impression that California was always the most restrictive as far as policing goes. And then everywhere else was kind of a little bit easier or favorable to be a cop. But I quickly realized that's not necessarily the case. So to your point, the question you asked is, what is it like? The easiest way as a sports person, I can give it to the metaphor of, it's like being a football player. if you play offense and defense, you're still a football player, but the game looks drastically different. And that would be the easiest way that I could articulate myself as how it looks and how it felt to be a cop. A lot of the things, even though we were still under the Ninth Circuit, it didn't apply. For example, plain view, just the ability to, Arizona versus Gantt case law doesn't apply. Everything needs a search warrant. Probation, parole, not a thing there. It was very difficult, and there was a lot of processes and bureaucracy to effectively do your job as a cop. There's some differences. One's not better than the other, but it was definitely a challenge to learn, to get into that mix, and kind of felt like being a cop all over again.
Well, so when you left here and went to Washington, you were in charge of our narcotics team, our special investigations unit. And prior to promoting to sergeant, you were on that team, and you guys are heavy into, the narcotics world and doing all of that. I mean, you even bought drugs wearing a clown suit one time. I remember that. That's an epic story. But so you guys were, you personally, I know the kind of cop that you are. And then having to like transition to that, like you say, there's like no probation or parole. I remember talking to you on the phone one time and you were explaining that to me. So like, if you guys were to find like drugs or narcotics or paraphernalia in plain view in a vehicle, let's say on a traffic stop, you couldn't just search that car.
That's correct. Yeah. You're getting a search warrant, but making matters more difficult, like that's not hard enough, right? Or laborsome for that average street cop. There was a period of time, about 2 years, that drugs were essentially legalized there. It went to the Washington State Supreme Court. We all heard that old, adage on the street, hey, they're not my pants. We've all ran into those situations. But oddly enough, that same situation made its way up to the Washington State Supreme Court. And those justices said, that's probably true. So that
is crazy.
With that being said, simple possession, having dope in your pocket, was no longer a chargeable offense. Unless they willingly said, yes, this is my drugs, or and you can tie it to it, you can't do anything. So fortunately, some reform has since taken place, and now, it's criminalized once again. But to your point, this is just one of the facets that made cop work challenging in these types of states.
So we do travel a lot and to other states, and we always get knocked on for being cops in California. So I'm taking it as Washington is a little bit worse than California in the terms of being a cop, or more challenging.
Sounds that way.
Interesting point. And I think I don't know, it is challenging. However, I think it depends how you look at it. And I'll still use that analogy from the football game, right? I think in California, it's faster to get to a very proficient state as a patrol officer due to exposure and that turn and burn type philosophy. We're pulling over cars. We can do plain view. We have probation. We have parole. And you're able to really effectively get a lot of reps in. And I think it's fair to say that. In Washington, though, we talked about those challenges, but with everything taking a search warrant, it's not uncommon for patrol officers to write maybe multiple search warrants per day. So they're learning that legal process, and maybe you're not getting the amount of exposure because of the labor that goes into it, but maybe it's a faster segue into other assignments like detectives because you have that investigative mindset built in from your grassroots level as a cop.
So I have a question, Dave. So you left our area, went up to Washington. Within 6 months, I believe it was, you were lieutenant from officer, and then you gradually got up to interim chief in a pretty short time frame. I know why that is, because I've had the opportunity to work with you and work for you. But can you kind of explain the differences between like your experience as an officer, detective, sergeant, and above all the way up to interim chief?
Yeah, the easiest way I can say it, and hence the reason I came back, anything past the rank of sergeant, I don't feel like you're as much of a cop anymore. And I say that politely because obviously you still are a sworn peace officer and the responsibility of the badge and gun still falls on you. But the reality of the day-to-day operations really ends as a cop past sergeant. As a lieutenant and above, and this is me speaking on my experience, it's more business-like. And I've told people the analogy because people will commonly ask, what is it like? What was your experience? Did you like being, an executive at a police department? And while the answer is yes, I learned a lot and I felt like I was able to affect some positive change. The best way I can describe it to the average street cop is putting it once again in a football type analogy or metaphor. And I've said, when is the last time you watched an NFL game and said, wow, that was a really well officiated game? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. As a executive, you can make 99 of those calls right, like a referee, but that one holding call you miss, you kind of, you crap the bed a little bit, right? And that's what gets seen. That's what gets talked about. So sometimes you have to remind yourself of that challenge that, yeah, you're doing good work, but you're not always going to be seen or viewed in the most favorable light.
Not to go too far off topic, what's your guys' thoughts on when people say law enforcement provides a level of customer service? The term customer service with law enforcement.
What do you think?
I think that is a great term, but a problematic term. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I think for when you're speaking to your cops, they're like, this isn't Macy's. This isn't some retail store, the mall. But when you speak to the general public, I think that's what they hear. When they hear customer service, they're not thinking, what's your return policy?
Yeah.
I think what they're looking at is how are they being treated? Do they feel heard? Do they feel that they are getting a quality service? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are paying our bills, right? They're the ones that are keeping the police department afloat. So when they say customer service, I think it's an easy way to connect with the general masses.
Yeah, I would say too, like you try to tell some of these young cops, you're like, hey, we are public servants. Like we do work for the public and we are there to serve the public. And to some cops, I don't think register with them, but maybe not. I don't necessarily like the term customer service for the reasons like you said, but at the end of the day, like you are out there to serve the general public and provide them with a good level of quality service. Now, if you work at a bigger city versus a small city, which you and I, well, actually all three of us have worked for small agencies before lateraling to where we are now. And policing there is much drastically different.
Very different.
So trying to balance that. And then I think what happens is you get stuck in a rut of when you're just busy all the time. And I've said this before, but like you go to a call that is probably meaningless to you, right? Like neighbors arguing over a trash can or something stupid, right? After dealing with a hot call or whatever, like that's where I think cops they start to lose that edge of providing good service to people, because then they start thinking like, why am I at this call when I was just dealing with this call? And I think as a sergeant, I would do this in my briefings, trying to keep the patrol cops grounded enough to be like, yes, that is like a very important call. And some of that stuff is like life threatening, but this low level stuff too is equally as important. And you're also representing your agency and who you work for and the city and everything else. So it all kind of like ties together for me, but
couldn't agree more.
That was probably a longer answer, but all right. So I want to kind of talk about some recent trending news articles that just came out that I find they contradict each other a little bit. And I want to get both your guys' takes on it, but a California research group just came out and said nationwide in larger metropolitan cities, homicides are down. I think it said 14%, and they were blaming the pandemic for the spike in violence and homicides and all of those things. Now, we were all three cops during the pandemic, and I think both of you guys can contest that. Like that was a really hard time to be a cop during the pandemic. I mean, there were all these new rules and quasi laws coming out. And then you had people, saying like, hey, that goes against the Constitution. And then it was like, well, is your sheriff or chief, are they going to, require you to enforce these said laws? It was difficult. Plus the mask mandate thing. We lost a ton of cops at our agencies. Every specialty assignment, I think, went away and everybody got soaked back to patrol. And then after post-pandemic, trying to jump back from that, I mean, I think we were down close to 30 cops, which is not a lot, I guess, for huge agencies. That's a drop in the bucket. But for an agency our size, that's a lot. But even larger agencies, in this region, we're down hundreds of police officers. Trying to bounce back from that and hire quality cops to replace those numbers was a daunting task. And I think we're still trying to play catch up from that. And we're a couple years out of the pandemic. So they're saying that the pandemic was the cause of all this violence. There's another article that just came out from LAPD, and it read 2 LAPD cops tried to do it or initiated a traffic stop this past week. The occupants of the car fired upon the cops immediately, pulling over, and struck the police vehicle several times. And they were able to get away, injuring the 2 officers. Luckily, they survived. Now, to me, this you got one side that is saying there is a war on cops, and then you have another side who is basically saying, hey, crime's down, violence is coming down, all of that. I'm curious, like, what is your guys' perspective on the term there's a war on cops?
Not going too far down the political lane, but we have to look at the time of year that it is. We have to look at what articles are being released and how they're trying to spin it, right? This isn't a political podcast.
No.
So we're going to very, very deeply avoid that. But I think you have to take each article with a grain of salt and understand, talk to your law enforcement friends, talk to your buddies. You have firsthand knowledge as law enforcement officers that, bad things are happening to a lot of good people out there. And the level of criminals that are on the streets right now are a lot higher than they have been in the past. People are getting out of jail. People are getting out of prison sooner. People that are meant to be serving life terms are getting kicked early. And that has to take effect on the crime on the streets when it comes to violent crime. As far as homicides, I can tell you ours for our agency was up last year.
Yeah. Would you agree that, this whole research came out and they're saying they're basically blaming the pandemic for all this violence and homicide and why homicides went up. Like, does the pandemic play a role into it? I would say maybe, but I agree in that the accountability for criminals has gone so far down.
Yeah.
And there's so much new legislation coming out with new laws that we're decriminalizing everything.
I think the pandemic had an impact on that as far as what is a bookable offense or what is an offense that's going to keep somebody in jail or prison for a while. However, I think also the pandemic is a very easy scapegoat for some things because it impacted all walks of life, right? People were losing their jobs left and right based on their political stance. People were dying, unfortunately, due to the illness, due to the sickness. So it's easy to say, oh, it's COVID related.
Yeah, and there were some agencies mandating the vaccine, and if you didn't get the vaccine, you were fired or you were put on administrative leave and you were not even allowed to come to work. Mm-hmm. Luckily, we didn't have to deal with any of that at our department, but I know that was happening here locally. But I do find, it's interesting because during the pandemic, you basically had to damn near kill somebody to get them booked in jail. Mm-hmm. The jails were not taking anybody. You were in Washington at the time, right?
Split. I was on the tail end here in California, and then we went up there. Yeah. So
was it the same? Because you could not book somebody in jail. Like, you had to literally call the jail, explain to them what the crime was, and unless it had something to do with a pretty significant violence, it was like you couldn't book people in jail. So I don't know. What's your thought? Like, what the term war on cops?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I kind of break it down into two actually different, I guess, facets, if you will. With one being the war on cops, or is it really a war on policing? And I think you have to look at it in that lens. If you're going to say that there's a war on cops, you have to be able to measure it. What are you using to do that? Well, fortunately, we have reports like FBI LEOCA that measures, or I guess highlights how many officers were either feloniously assaulted in the line of duty or killed. And if you look over the last 20 years, and granted, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the last time I looked at them, yes, there is maybe a minor spike, upward trend, I should say, in officers that have lost their life since the pandemic. But the reality is it's not a substantial number. It's not a substantial spike over the last 20 years. So if you're asking me, is there a war on cops? The data doesn't necessarily support it. Now, if you're saying, is there a war on policing? That I can potentially find a compelling argument for. As you mentioned, Kyle, you're looking at all these different sweeping legislations all over the U.S., right? Not just exclusive here to the West Coast. And these are things that you have to be able to account for. There is new laws and you name it, tactics that are expected of us with the legislation, the loss of the carotid chokehold. Those are just two quick things that we have to be mindful of. But the other reality is that on a recent poll showed that the average person within the community doesn't trust the cops. Ever since, I believe, 2021, it's dropped to the high, 45%, for example. So when you combine the lack of public trust And then on top of that, sweeping legislation reform, yeah, it's going to be difficult to do the job.
So do you think George Floyd, the whole George Floyd incident that had, because that was right around that time frame when numbers like, you know, they came out and said community members like flat out don't trust cops. I mean, that's when we saw numbers like significantly decline. And we've been trying to get ourselves out of that hole ever since the George Floyd thing, even though like, you know, I mean, it's autopsies have come out, like that whole thing has been debunked, I think. But I still think as a community of policing, like we're trying to dig our way out of that. And after that incident, I mean, we saw a significant spike, I think, in ambushes towards cops solely based on that particular case. But like for me, I don't know. I just don't like the term war on cops. I don't know why. Like it doesn't sit well with me. Like I feel like I agree with you in that there really isn't enough data to show that there really is a war on cops. The way I look at it is, I think with all this new legislation that's come out, I know they're coming out and saying, hey, you know, homicides are down like 14% or whatever nationwide. But I do think that with all these new laws that have come out, violence is up towards cops. You got violence towards people that are up. You've got property crimes that are up. And I just think it's a lack of accountability with the justice system. Like that's kind of what it boils down to for me. And it is difficult being a cop, more so in some states than others, California being one of them, because we are very restricted on what you can and can't do, or when you can and can't arrest somebody, and all these violent criminals that are getting let out of prison because they're deemed non-violent. Mm-hmm. And what I think people forget about that is you could be in jail or prison for a non-violent crime. Let's say it's dope sales or something, right? Non-violent. But if you look at that person's past history, what they've been in prison or jail prior for that.
That's a good point.
Has significant violent history. And so it's just, when that law was enacted, like they're not taking into account what that person's capable of. It's just
the current offense that they're
what are they currently
with.
in jail for? And I think that's hurt us the most.
And I agree. I think that's why we're seeing this violent crime increase in the United States, specifically California. And we've talked a little bit about ambush versus the word assassination, right? I don't think these criminals, these bad guys are intending on killing cops in some cases. I think that, like, for example, the LA traffic stop, it was a traffic stop. And these people went, shit, now what?
Yeah.
We got guns. Who knows what else they had in the vehicle with them. It's either we go to prison for X amount of time. In their case, they're probably thinking life, right? Or we fight our way out of this. And that can be scary sometimes when you pin somebody in a corner and they have nowhere else to do.
Yeah. It's like cornering a rat, dude. A rat's going to chew its way out of whatever, however it can. All right. So my next question would be, dovetailing off of that, is a lot of, I think, cities and agencies are trying to curb the violence by, a lot of people want to blame mental health on a lot of this stuff. And, you can blame the pandemic for mental health on the rise. People were saying that for a long time, but you now have these like mental health crisis negotiators riding around. They're embedded within the police departments, and they're riding with cops. I just saw on the news that Seattle PD is doubling down on this, and they are doubling the size of their mental health crisis workers out in the field. What do you guys think about departments having that, and do you think it's effective?
I think it's effective when they're there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's it sounds great, and it's great when we have them, but they're not 24/7. We don't always have them.
Yeah, I think when we abolished mental health hospitals, when probably in the late 90s, I think is when really they started to really go away. I think we really did ourselves a disservice by doing that, because now, for people that don't know, that watch this, when we are dealing with a person in a mental crisis, now I actually think cops are having a difficult time figuring out, is this a mental crisis? Is it a drug thing, or an alcohol deal? They're just wanting to combine everything as a mental health thing. But now the way it works is, and I'm sure it doesn't matter what state you work in, you take that individual to your local hospital. They don't have the staffing or the needs or the ability to house these people. So then they get frustrated and they want to get them out of the hospital as quick as possible because those people are now taking up patient beds. So I understand their frustration behind this whole conversation, but what do you think about like the effectiveness of, you were in Washington, but what we're doing with this whole mental health crisis and embedding these social workers into police departments?
Sure. I love the idea of the embedding those, I guess, mental health advocates within, with patrol. It's a great way to actually potentially de-escalate, hot calls out there for service. And that's obviously an expectation that the courts and society has framed for us. But the reality is, I'd be surprised if 10% of the agencies in the U.S. have that. I think that's still a very high number. I'd be surprised if 5% have that. We didn't have that at my last agency in an active capacity. I think it's a two-prong approach. I think, as you mentioned, Kyle, I think you have to have the long-term facilities there for substance abuse and mental health. I think they have to have those wraparound services available for these people. And then in addition, I think you have to have the field component there with these mental health clinicians, because as street cops, that's not us. I don't have a PhD in psychology. You might. I know you don't.
I definitely don't.
But with that being said, we have to have these experts in the field with us. And the reality is, sometimes if you're lucky and you work in a jurisdiction that may have them, odds are they're only going to work 9 to 5. And I know it's a shocker to some, but sometimes people do experience crisis at 11 p.m. And what's happening to those folks? How are they getting the help? It's not enough to say, hey, here's a phone number, leave a voicemail, and hopefully it's Friday night. Hopefully Monday morning, somebody will call you. If we're going to do anything as a nation, I'm a firm believer, if you're going to invest in it, invest in it. There has to be 24-hour, 365 care, really no different than how we operate as law enforcement or fire.
Absolutely. You have to provide care for the people that can't care for themselves. For in California, the 5150 law, the Welfare and Institution Law, basically says we can remove somebody's civil liberties from them if we find them to be a danger to themselves, danger to others, gravely disabled, right? We take them to the hospital. They sit at the hospital for up to 72 hours before they're presented by a mental health clinician. Once they meet with a doctor at your local hospital who is dealing with hundreds of other patients, are they really truly getting the care that they need? Or is the hospital meeting a certain criteria and saying, okay, thanks, discharge, go meet with your primary? I truly believe that we need to get better health care systems for these people that need assistance. And it does require 24/7.
Yeah. Do you guys think police academies are changing or altering how they're teaching tactics more like to deal with these type of people? I think back when we went to the academy, that topic wasn't highly talked about, and especially as far as like tactics and stuff.
I got to jump in on this one.
Go ahead.
So it'll put a smile on your face. This is one of the actual, like I said, not bashing my previous state. Love it. Got a lot of love for the fellow Washingtonians. But one thing that I found that I was not a fan of is, kind of tying back to what we were talking to, the academy and post George Floyd era, there was a lot of discussion that cops have implicit bias, and regardless, the way to remove it is at the academy, hire academy instructors that, guess what, have never been cops. So you have these folks that come from the private sector, or they read, or they come from academia, and now they're teaching you felony vehicle stops. They're teaching you response to robberies, and it sounds absurd, and I'll be the first to say it.
And hold on, these people were never cops.
Correct.
But they're teaching cop skills, not the mental health side of being a police officer and providing mental health care.
Wow.
They're teaching multiple disciplines to these academy recruits.
I've never heard of that. So
yeah.
Go ahead, keep going.
So as you can imagine, that became challenging at times. I mean, I think the intention was well. I think it was kind of a prototype or a trial period. And from my understanding, it's since kind of changed. But as you can imagine, what kind of training and experience can you get if, you've never done the job, but now you're the one grading the material or creating the material, giving the instruction. But to your point is, how do you explain dealing with someone who's been in crisis, right? What better person for that than a tenured and an experienced cop who has maybe a decade or 2 decades of experience under their belt, and be able to teach these ways to connect with other folks within the community that are, undergoing mental health crisis, right? We're not clinicians. We don't have that medical background, but what we do have is the ability to connect with people and de-escalate. And that's something that you can't learn from a book.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the tactics that they're training in the academy are, they're so watered down, and they're making everything about, de-escalation and dealing with mental health crisis people and stuff. We're going to watch a video here in a second. You guys watch this body cam out of Reno, Nevada, which I think the actions of the officers, I think play a role in what we're talking about. But that is crazy, dude, that I'd never heard of that civilian people were coming into the police academies and training cops how to perform tactics, and they've never even done the job before. That would be like sending you out on field training with a person who's never been a cop, but they're going to go tell you how to be a cop.
It would make sense if they were coming in and speaking from their perspective as a mental health clinician, right? And how to speak to people that are in crisis. Well, there's certain trainings I go to where I'm talking to defense attorneys, I'm talking to prosecutors, I'm talking to other aspects of law enforcement. They're not teaching me how to draw my gun and how to do a felony vehicle stops and arrest and control and all these things. They're teaching me their aspect and how I can apply it to my job.
No, for sure. And I will say, I think that it has pivoted from there. I know we had a local academy within the jurisdiction that I served in, and it was a very well-ran academy, and it was all from the local jurisdictions, police and sheriff's office. And there was, to my knowledge, no, let's say non-sworn individuals teaching. I think they have moved away from that, but that did happen for a period of time. And I also don't want to specifically tie to what specific classes they taught or didn't teach, but I don't think that really matters. I just think at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer, if you're going to teach at the police academy, you should have at least been a cop. Yeah. I leave it at that without diving into the weeds of what class can you or can you not teach, other than maybe procedural law or CPR. Yeah, that's appropriate to have a paramedic or fire in. But when it comes to tactics and dealing with people in crisis, I'm a firm believer only cops can teach that.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that unfortunately in our career path, knee-jerk reactions are something that we have to deal with, and something will happen causing an admin or cities or states to have this knee-jerk reaction and swing the pendulum all the way to the other side, and then slowly, it sounds like it happened up in Washington, it settles back in the middle where it needs to be.
Exactly. I mean, for example, to that point, and I think an issue that we had is we lost Terry versus Ohio. For, I don't know, maybe 18 months, 2 years, we could not touch somebody unless you had you had probable cause to make an arrest. So you can imagine how difficult that can be. You think that you stop a 459 suspect, or there's a shooting suspect, and you don't have your frisk factors really that are applying anymore. So you're just hoping that they don't have a gun, or you're trying to put them in a disadvantaged position. It's very challenging. Fortunately, that has swayed and come back. But there's also the other things that were crazy for me. Looping back to your question, I'm kind of derailing this, I apologize, but things that you can't learn. For example, you do a traffic stop for someone with a headlight out, and you think you're doing good cop work because it looks like there's 4 gangsters in the car. You can't talk to the other passengers. You can only talk to the driver because it's a vehicle violation. So I go up there and they're like, who is this rogue guy trying to jam up all these other passengers, ask their name? And I'm like, dude, I'm doing cop work, but the game is different.
You're doing California cop work.
I'm doing California cop work.
That's why you're back.
And that's why I'm back. As the great Notorious B.I.G. said, I'm going back to Cali.
Yeah. So everyone that wants to hate on California, it ain't that bad. Dude, that's wild. But yeah, I think by taking away officer safety and all of those things, you're actually making it more dangerous for the cop, but also I think the person, your suspects or whoever, I think it's a bad combination for both.
Totally.
Now I'm not saying we need to, have the full authority to go habeas grabus on everybody and do whatever we want. But there are these laws in place like Terry versus Ohio for certain reasons, and it's to make it safe for everybody. That's crazy, dude. I had never heard that.
Yeah, it was challenging.
Yeah, I can only imagine. The crazy thing though is imagine being a recruit, not knowing any different, and you're just like, yeah, this is just the way it is. I mean, we think it's nuts because we've been doing the job for a long time, but imagine being brand new, you wouldn't know any different.
Yeah, that's factual.
Might as well get a felony traffic stop training from my dad, who's never been a cop before. Probably has more common sense than those people.
It's crazy to think about as you dig into case law and how these laws came about, these court decisions came about, and how easily we could potentially lose them.
Oh, dude.
You know, Terry v. Ohio, Graham v. Connor, Miranda v. Arizona, all these things came about because of good articulation in police reports and getting proper wording on the record. So not to go too far off the rails, because I think it's super important that we stay on task, but
if we started talking about a bunch of case law, we'd bore everybody and they'd be like, I'm clicking off of this.
Okay,
but no. I'm
shit.
kidding, because that's like super important.
drugs.
But the thing is what people need to understand is like, once that stuff is gone, it's gone.
absolutely.
Like, you're either not getting it back, or it would be incredibly difficult to get some of these things back that work for us. And I think what people need to understand too, and you know, there's a lot of people that are not cops that listen or watch this. The courts are always going to rule in favor of officer safety, as they should, right? So like, as long as you're doing things for the right reasons and you can articulate that you're doing it to be safe, I think at the end of the day, like, the courts are going to rule in your favor that, you know, you may lose a case or evidence is going to get tossed out or whatever. But if you're doing it for the right reasons and you're trying to be safe, you're good to go. But let's watch this video. So this happened in Reno, Nevada. We'll show you guys the body cam, and there's some good takeaways from the video, some officer safety things. This dude was absolutely out of his mind. He looks like Justin with his shirt off.
Shit, I wish.
But
my wife wishes.
He's at least the same age though, right? This guy's like close to 50.
He's a couple years older. He's a couple years older.
All right, whatever. I'm going to play the video, and there's a lot that we'll dig into some of this and talk about. Now, this video went viral. It's got millions of views everywhere. And yes, the video is funny. The ending of it's pretty comical, but good takeaways from it. So let's watch it.
It's 1:30 a.m. in Reno, Nevada, where police are called to an apartment complex for the second time after reports of a man who was yelling.
Looks like they're just open. Hey Chris, Reno PD, what's going on, man?
I got no guns.
Okay.
Who are you?
I'm with the Reno Police Department. I work with your brother.
Get your hand off the weapon right there, mother. I got my hands right here.
What is
Take
it?
your hat off. You. You.
Chris,
You.
Chris, what is going on, man?
Coming out there.
Alright, please come on.
Where's my brother? I need a hug, man. Don't shoot me.
Where is your brother? I don't know. We've been trying to get a hold of him.
Can I get a hold of my brother?
We tried getting a hold of him. He's not answering right now, Chris.
My name is Christopher Head. You guys shot me 2020. You guys didn't pay me any money. You
Chris.
shot me in my right shoulder.
We know, bud.
Chris, what is going on?
We're not here to
Jesus.
hurt you.
What's going on today, Chris?
Let me do some pull-ups. Get the out of my way. Move away. All of you. All of you move the away. Back the up.
Chris.
And if you do the
Chris.
shit in the back, shoot me the
He's got a taser.
You gonna tase me? I'm in my own apartment.
Chris,
Stop it.
you got a bunch of your
What do you
neighbors
guys
are
want me to
calling.
do? You guys trying to take me to jail?
Police identify the man seen here as 45-year-old Christopher Sheehan, the brother of an officer and military veteran.
I'm gonna walk to the hospital with my dog. Now get the out of here. All of you now.
Chris, what is going on today, man?
If I ask you guys nicely, I'm gonna tell you guys right now. Whoever could go toe-to-toe with me, head-to-head, push-up to push-up, let's get it. Going facing the west right here.
You're yoked.
Facing that. I'm not saying I'm yoked.
Chris.
Okay? Back up and stay. Are you scared? You're scared. You're scared. Are you scared or not? Be honest.
I'm not scared of you, dude. There's
I know you're not scared of me. I'm scared of me. I fear one man. And his name is... Do you want to know what his name is? Can I do a push-up? You guys won't shoot me in the back?
I'm not Chris.
You promise me? Listen, I'm a man.
Chris, do you remember
I'm
me?
a man, right? I'm a man.
Chris, do you remember me? We talked at Sports West.
What's your name?
It's Goodrich.
Goodrich. What's your last first name?
It's Elliot.
Elliot what?
Elliot Goodrich.
When's your birthday?
Well, Chris, it's in February.
What's your number of your birthday?
Chris, what's going on tonight?
I'm doing 14.
Chris,
My brother's February 14th, 1979.
Okay. Yeah, I know your brother. I know Monique as well.
Dude, shut the up.
Chris, what's going on?
Shut the up!
Why are we out here tonight?
Because I want you to shut the up.
Why do you keep yelling?
Shut your mouth, please.
Chris.
Put your taser down and shut your mouth. I see your taser right there.
I know, because you got me amped up right now, Chris.
All your weapons, I see them right here.
Chris.
I got you amped up because you guys are soft. Every one of you out here is soft.
Okay.
Every single one of you, especially that guy right there.
Here, Chris spots another officer standing in the distance and is, let's just say, not too happy about it.
They think he's some kind of cowboy over there. I see you, dude.
I'm not trying
Shoot
to
me!
hide.
Who you think you're hard?
Chris.
You think you're hard, motherfucker? You think you're standing there hard?
Stop, my friend.
You're gonna shoot me because you think I think
no.
I'm better than you.
I was there when that happened, my friend. Do you
Shut
want to
the up!
Okay.
You weren't there!
Yes, I was.
Did you come up and hit me in the chest, man?
No,
You're okay?
I tried to
Did you come up and hit me in the abs, man? You're good?
Chris, can we
Did you
please-
do that?
Chris, can
Did
you
you say
listen?
I love you, bro? Did you say that to me?
Chris.
Was my brother there?
Hey, Chris. Can we get you some help, my friend?
I already got you.
Officers keep their distance from the 45-year-old as this late-night drama continues.
Chris.
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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. You're gonna shoot me? I got no weapons. What else you want to see? You want to see the song?
Chris.
You want to see the Sheehan song, dude? Oh, you real?
Chris.
You guys think you're hard? Navy SEALs are hard. David Goggins, Jocko Willick, Jocko, run this country. David Goggins, run this country. Kyle Milliken. You guys know who Kyle Milliken is? You know who Marcus Petrell is?
Chris.
You guys know who they are? I bet you read their books. You guys think they're hard? I'm hard. I'm hard as Tell me, did it? She is, baby. She is. She is. She is. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Get the back now. Go read your Bible. Shut the
No, stop, boss. Chris, can you stop and listen? We need to get you help. You know
I'm gonna
you
go
need
get me help. Don't
No,
stop.
stop with us.
Don't shoot me here.
No, Chris.
Please don't shoot me. I'm going to get my own help. Stop.
We're gonna stop. We need
I'm
to
going
get
to
your
put a
help.
shirt on. And I'm
Chris,
going to get my own
stop.
help. Don't shoot me in the back.
Hey,
Don't shoot me in the back, Reno PD. Don't arrest me.
We're
Don't
going-
touch me.
We're gonna get you to-
I have broken no laws. Shut the up. Let me be quiet. Let me be quiet and go in my own house that I earned with my blood, my sweat, and my tears.
I understand.
Shut the up.
We're gonna get you some help.
I'm
okay?
gonna go get some right now.
We're gonna get you to.
I'm gonna go get shut the up. I'm walking.
No.
Ah!
You need to stop, my friend. I'm here to help you. We're trying to help you.
You will not put your hands on me. You guys will not touch
Chris.
me. You especially, you're all weak.
Okay, Chris.
Think I'm on? Think I'm cranked out? Wood.
It's not long until officers decide they've seen enough.
Can I pray, guys?
Chris.
Can I pray?
No.
I can't pray.
Stop. We need to go and get you some
Okay,
help.
I'm going. Don't touch me. I'm going in my window.
No, we're not going to
I'm
the
going to
house.
my apartment. That is my dog's in there.
Stop.
My dog's in there.
Let's go.
All right, take me to jail.
Thank you.
We're gonna take me to jail for a little. We're gonna take you to the hospital. You guys take me to the hospital. Relax. Guys.
Officers handcuff Chris, who's not exactly calming down.
So why does it take so many of you guys?
Because you're amped
Because
up.
you're amped up.
No, I'm not
We're
amped up.
safe.
Okay, leave me alone, please.
We're not here to hurt you, bud.
We
not
want to
here
take
to
you to
hurt you.
hospital.
You're not taking me to jail.
All right, so we just played segments of the body cam footage. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll link the full body cam footage in the description if you want to watch it, because it's over 25 minutes long. But the key takeaways is, number one, these officers go to this apartment complex for the second time because this dude's acting loud. He's acting erratic inside of his own apartment. He's clearly loud as the officers approach. You can hear on the body cam. The first thing I want to point out is, you know shit's about to get real when a dude that looks like that doesn't come out his front door, but he exits the window by removing his screen and uses his own window as a front door. That's when I would be concerned.
I think it's appropriate. It's a classic move, like a mischievous teenager exiting through the bedroom window. So what could go wrong?
Yeah,
On a hot summer night.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. I think when you see that, you go, oh shit, this isn't going to go well.
And then you realize the guy's the size of the Kool-Aid
Hulk.
character, but on just full of muscle, not Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So in the video, let's talk some training points on this, because you can watch videos like this and you can laugh and be on your way. But really, I mean, I think sergeants should be playing videos like this in briefings and like breaking these things down, right?
Agree.
Because that's a pretty average call that like anybody could go to. This guy just happened to be very large in size, and wanted to take on the world. But I think the takeaway on this was you had probably about 6 or 7 cops in the video you can see on scene. You go to a call, dude's being super loud in his own apartment. Okay, he exits his own apartment on his own via his window. He's asking to talk to his brother, who is also a Reno PD officer, and this dude's a vet. We were talking about mental crisis and whatever. You could assume that this dude is either probably heavily intoxicated, on drugs, we don't know, but he's acting erratic. The intentions of the cops were to obviously remove that person and take him somewhere. I think it sounded like they wanted to take him to the hospital. So that's the decision they made. The point is they're taking him away. I would ask you guys in this video, like, how long do you let this play out? Because this dude is jacked. He's huge. He's super animated. You've got like 6 or 7 cops there. Okay, he's causing a scene in this apartment complex. So what, really? Do you wait this out and you try to de-escalate this dude, or do you just take immediate action? What action would you take? And like, if you're the supervisor on scene, like, how long are you letting this play out?
Yeah. So as a supervisor, I think first and foremost, obviously time's our friend. So if we have time, we're going to utilize it. I think we can all agree with that, setting up ourselves for success before we even arrive. With that being said, it's like, what did the cops know, right, in this situation? Could they have done some research to find out what they have on this guy? What's his history? What's his size? And then come up with a game plan. If he is wanted for a crime, obviously, how far are you going to allow this guy to dictate the situation before you, like you mentioned, you grab him and affect that arrest. But I think, and we don't know in this particular situation, so I don't want to necessarily assume, but what was those pre-planning stages? And I think that's where you get ahead of this. And I'm a firm believer, if this, then this, right? And that's where you can have it. If this guy's actions dictate or cross this line or this proverbial line in the sand, then it's going to trigger this act from us. Maybe they had that, maybe they didn't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the video just seemed like they were really trying to, they were trying to calmly talk to him. They were trying to bring it down a little bit. He wasn't going for it. I mean, at one point he's asking him to do like have a push-up competition, but in the video you can see in the officer's body cam, he gets like really close to the cop.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but a guy acting like that, one hit from that dude and you're laid out, like you're done.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I think that a couple things. Time is on your side in that. I think that you drive once he exits that apartment through the window of all exit points, you drive a wedge there. He's not getting back in, which they did do a good job not letting him back into that point. And we're not playing, Monday morning quarterbacking this. We're dissecting this and trying to learn from it and build from it and get better. Can we get brother on the phone? And maybe speakerphone brother, hey, and does that bring him down? They have all the time to talk in the world, but when you bring up the fact that he got, I think it was 2 or 3 officers at different times where he's less than an arm reach away from them. And that dude had 22, 23-inch biceps. He could easily grab somebody and not let go.
Yeah.
So, you don't sacrifice you're never going to sacrifice officer safety in order to get through to somebody that's in either drugged up, drunk, or in mental crisis. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to do it. You're not going to sacrifice an officer or yourself to get to that person.
Yeah, I think I like this video because I think we're seeing it nowadays where you have so many patrol teams. I know everybody listening to this can relate. You have a lot of young cops on these patrol teams who are being asked to handle calls like this. I mean, that dude was huge in stature. Like, that's intimidating, right? Like, I don't care who you are, unless you're some badass, like, jiu-jitsu guy who thinks you can just take everybody on. That is intimidating. I wouldn't want to fight that guy because that guy would beat my ass. Like, I have no doubt that dude is going to win that fight. But I think, like, what would you offer to cops that are listening to this? Like, how do you deal with that situation? Like, I agree with you, and I don't think it gets talked enough about, but, like, dude, you got to draw that line in the sand. And, like, if your ultimate goal is to remove that dude from that situation, as soon as he crosses that line, like, you're taking action. I'm not going to let somebody get so riled up and amp themselves up to the tune of, like, how long are we going to sit there and do this for an hour, 2 hours? I know time's on our side, but you know, I think a good option in that scenario would have been a taser. And you can see the red dot on that dude's chest. Like somebody had a taser on him, which I think probably just pissed him off even more. And it sounds even like he had made a comment that they had shot him before in the shoulder. So I don't know what that was all about, but nonetheless, you got a dude who's super muscular. That taser is going to work. You know, he's got no shirt on.
He's a prime candidate for it.
He
has a high muscle mass, no shirt.
6% body fat.
Yeah. He is the prime candidate to take a taser ride and hopefully have it be effective. I don't know. I look at a video like that and I just think, man, you know, there's a lot of young cops out there who can watch this stuff. They can learn from it. And there's a lot of young supervisors out there too who might be getting promoted too soon, who don't have a lot of that experience under their belt. And dude, if you're the sergeant, and especially if in the middle of the night, you may not have a watch commander or somebody there to hold your hand. Like you're having to make those decisions and then ask these young cops to do what you're asking them to do.
100%. And I think I want to touch on something you mentioned about taking action. And it's not enough just to take action. It has to be decisive action. When I saw the video, from what I guess recall, is that when they do decide to put dude in cuffs, one guy's grabbing the arm and then for like maybe a second or two, the other arm is not being accounted for. And then somebody finally has to come up from the crowd and grab it and obviously take him into custody. I think it's so important that when you make that call to put cuffs on him, it's quick, it's decisive, and then it's synchronized with all those guys on in the field. And that should already be pre-talked about as well. Who's my arrest team? Who's my contact team? Just as important of having that person dedicated or those two people dedicated for hands. I know, Justin, with your background as a negotiator and everything along those lines, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is important that we don't have multiple people trying to talk to this guy all at once. We need to have our effective communicator, someone maybe with your skill set up there trying to build rapport. So they're not talking over one another, and then we have the best outcome for us.
And you're exactly right. So you have that one person that's communicating with the person, and the rest of the people shouldn't be standing around watching. They should be formulating a plan that if he crosses this line, we're going hands-on, right? Or we're going taser, we're doing X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. And that negotiator, that person that's talking with him is doing everything he can for a peaceful resolution. That's everyone's goal. My personal take on it is your contact with this person tonight might affect the next officer's contact tomorrow, right? So even if it takes a little bit more time to reach that peaceful resolution, during that next mental health crisis or next drug-induced psychosis or next drunk spell, whatever it may be, maybe he then goes, they didn't treat me like an asshole last time, so this time I'm going to go peacefully, or it's not going to be as big of an issue. What if that taser doesn't work? You know, tasers don't work all the time. It's not the end-all be-all. Everyone's experienced a taser deployment where it doesn't get the satisfactory results that we are trained that it's going to give you. So once you understand that if this taser deploys and it doesn't work, then it's a big old dog pile against six of us for C-Man, right? That's the way it goes sometimes. We don't always pick and choose where shit goes down. But if we can slow it down enough to where we say, hey, let's just talk, let's talk. I don't care if he's being loud. I don't care if he's being loud in an apartment complex. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You got to figure that once he's that loud, there's now probably 15 cameras recording you. This shit go down. So you can at least say that we did everything we could to reach a peaceful resolution, and we didn't get there.
Yeah, I think where cops could be a little bit better in these videos that we see is having that plan. You know, a lot of times it seems like there's just no plan, and we're just going to try to soft approach this, all the time. And albeit that might work sometimes, having that soft approach all the time, but not having like a contingency plan. That's just not going to work for you. And that's how cops get hurt. It's how people get hurt. That's how force gets escalated, in my opinion.
Well, it's where bad habits are formed. Bad habits are formed by things happening in a repetitious manner the wrong way. And people think, oh, it works out. It's okay. So this is the way we do it now, even if it's the wrong way. Do it the right way, and it's going to work out the same way, except for now you're doing things the right way. Meet up. Talk really quick. He's loud in his apartment. It's okay. Meet in the parking lot. Meet up with your partners. Talk for 1 minute, 2 minutes about a plan where people are going to position. Hey, I need you three on the west side of the building. You guys are going to be hands on, out of sight if he pops out. If he does come out, you guys drive a wedge between him and the apartment so that he can't get back in, but whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, of course. And I think the other thing to account for that as well is, should something happen, right? And obviously in this case, fortunately it didn't, but let's say it goes to a fatal OIS. They're going to ask you, what did you do to mitigate this situation here? Did you guys talk about it? Did you guys figure out who's talking? Did you have a less lethal plan? Did you do X, Y, and Z? It's not a good look to just shrug your shoulders and say, I don't know.
Yeah, we just thought it was going to go our way.
That's not good.
Dave was in charge.
Yeah. Dave who?
Yeah. No, but for real. So along those lines, Mark and I do our patrol survival tactics class, and we travel all over, like I said, to different states. And every class I always ask, like, who in here generally just goes to the call that you're dispatched to, or who meets up with your partners on a substantial call, like whatever, right? Something like this, you would probably do it. Given that you're already there, and if you're going to invite 7 cops to the call, like, you should probably have a plan. But like, how many of you just go to the call, and then how many of you meet up with your partner before you go to the call and have that little quick, could be 30 seconds, maybe it's a minute, whatever. Maybe you're figuring out, like, what are we going to, and like, do we need more resources? Most of the time, I would probably say 95% of the time of the classes that we teach, all the officers in the room just say they just go to the call with their partner. And so I think the huge value to that is you should take that extra little bit of time and like have a little meetup spot around the corner with your partner. Have a quick conversation, what it is that you're going to. Do you need more resources? Do as much research as you can about the individuals of the call that you're going to. And in this case, in this body cam footage, like, you're already bringing that many people to the party. You know that things are not going to go well. Like, those conversations should definitely be had, and bring the appropriate tools with you.
For sure. If I was going to add to that, I'm a fan, and I know some cops will have an aversion to this, but have those conversations on body cam, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if it's not there, some people will argue it didn't happen, or maybe the extent of what was the planning like. If you know you're going to it, rally up with the guys, find out who's doing what, put that on, tell our story, rather than if something does go bad or goes tragic. And then, because they're going to ask sooner or later. So let your planning and the video speak for itself, rather than being on the stand and trying to explain or reverse engineer what happened and how it ended as a fatal OIS and what you did up to that point. I think with the advent of body cams, it's a huge benefit for us, and we need to make sure that we're being very deliberate with how we use it. And this is a prime way to leverage every opportunity it offers.
Absolutely. It depends on every department's policy, but ours will allow body camera to be viewed after an OIS, right? So if you say, hey, I want to watch, with your attorney present, I want to watch my body camera from the event, but I also want to watch my body camera during the meetup spot 5 minutes beforehand, so that you understand what your position was, what your job duties were, what everyone's job was, and then you have your account of the event. I'm a huge fan of that, memorializing that, get it locked in. It can't be misconstrued. People are going to remember things differently when it comes to that kind of an event, right?
Or you're not going to remember certain
or
things.
you're not going to remember certain things.
Yeah.
But if it's memorialized in that body camera, it's locked in forever.
Yeah. And I've been in the hot seat a couple of times for OISs, and it's like, you are going to get asked that question. Like, what was your plan going into this? And like you said, dude, you can't shrug your shoulders and go, oh, well, we just thought it was just going to work out. That ain't going to fly. So it's a good video to watch. I thought some good officer safety takeaways. I'm glad nobody got hurt. The Hulk, I guess, went to the hospital.
Didn't smash.
Yeah, he didn't smash. The best part was, though, as he's getting loaded up in the ambulance, he says that he's going to walk onto UNR and join the football team. So maybe they can look forward to using him as a running back.
Maybe we'll add him to my fantasy football lineup.
Yeah.
I think if that guy was in front of me blocking, I think even I could score a touchdown.
Oh, yeah. Head-to-head, him and Marshawn Lynch, that might be a good we might have to see if we could maybe work that out, but that'd be pretty funny. All right, so moving on. I want to ask both of you guys sitting here. All right, we've all worked with each other for a long time. We've all worked the same patrol shifts together as street cops. Best time of my career when I was in K-9 working with you guys. I want to ask you, most memorable, favorite, wild call that you can remember, at least being on maybe with each other or not.
Sure. I'll kick it off if that's cool.
Damn, dude, you already had this freaking bottle. You knew this was going to get asked, and like you already pre-thought this out.
No, I thought about this recently, actually, is the reason it comes up. And obviously with Chris Boston, as he's been on the show before, but he was also on our patrol team.
We got to, hold on. We got to give, I did tell, actually, I was on the phone with him last night. I was like, dude, Chris, by the way, for everyone that doesn't know, Chris used to work with us. Chris was the wild card.
Absolutely.
Great cop. One of the best cops I've ever worked with.
Wild card is a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
He was not reckless in a bad way.
No, but
reckless in like a fun, let's go do some shit kind of way.
Yeah, you could count on Chris to crack something off, but
Absolutely.
one of the best street cops I've ever worked for. So we're going to give you a shout out, Chris.
And he either liked you or he hated you.
And you'll know.
Yeah, you would definitely know. Probably didn't like you.
Facts.
Anyways, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that incident, and kind of we talked about pre-planning, was I think we were all somewhat still younger street cops, but there was a call at a gas station with an individual who would refuse to come out of a bathroom, and he was just being weird, and we kind of downplayed it at first. And this guy's like, go away, I'll kill you, I'll hurt you. And we're like, whatever, dude. And ultimately, I think we ended up like getting to a point, like it was starting to get like weird, and kind of the hairs on the back of our neck started to rise. And we came up with this weird like plan. We're like, all right, we're going to crack this door. Kyle's got a dog, just based on, this guy's statements now with these homicidal type statements. Crack the door. Next thing you know, I see this guy probably from like Justin to I, and he's standing there like Michael Myers with this knife. And I'm like, shit, this is real. That's not what I expected. I thought it was just going to be some, I thought it was just going to be some dude sitting on the toilet or like, hunched over on the floor, refusing to come out. Typical patrol call.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. And to your point, like always being prepared, always prep for the worst. And I saw that guy first, I'm like, oh no. Fortunately, Kyle's dog was there. It was a great resource. Took the guy down within a matter of like seconds, and that knife just goes flying. And we're like, oh, that could have been real bad real quick. So
how did we get into that bathroom though? You left that part out.
What, didn't we breach it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was at a gas station, but it was a metal door.
Yeah.
Probably opened outward.
No, it was inward. I
Was
think
it inward?
Boston was
It
hitting
was an inward opening door, but Boston, I think, had the ram. I had my dog.
And I'm standing on a chest freezer because there's only like 3 feet of space.
We had a shield. I remember we had a shield. Like we had we were.
Was there a supervisor there?
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah, Diaz was there.
We don't got to name anybody.
No, it's all good. He was
took care of us.
He was like, go ahead, guys, do what you need to do. Yeah, and I remember it took Chris probably 10 whacks to get that door
Metal
open.
door with a metal frame. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the thought was just like, all right, we're all here, but to your point, like he's probably like in a fetal position on the floor.
That's what I expected.
Yeah, and me too.
I was wrong.
No shit. Like that door flung open, and he's not kidding, dude. That dude was standing at the door.
So we're talking over 10 years ago now with that call.
No,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
it was about 10
absolutely.
years ago, yeah, for sure.
You think so? Yeah. Fuck, we are getting old.
Would you do it the same way now?
I don't know how many other options. I mean, yes and no, because your options are limited.
Yeah.
I mean, we have
You're in a gas station.
You're in a gas station, but do you have the option to just walk away?
Well, so for this dude, like, and ironically enough, he was a fugitive from Washington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't he like a parolee at large at a state of Washington? He was like,
awesome.
train
So
hopping.
we're sitting on, we're getting
But we didn't know that. We didn't know that.
Okay.
The point is he's at a gas station. The gas station clerk wanted him gone, and these guys are trying to tell him to leave, and he was like, "I'll kill you." He's making threats to the cops. Do you walk away from that? Probably not.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the dudes, you got to get him out of there, right? Like you can't leave that gas station attendant by himself with this dude, this deranged guy in the bathroom threatening to kill people.
It's all crazy in there.
But I will say, like,
all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
Like if you're going to stay in there, can you mind
Hot
cleaning
dog
the toilet and signing that little
hot dog
checkout?
hamburgers.
Last clean.
Yeah. And this was not a nice part of town, so it was disgusting. But I don't know. I think nowadays, like, dude, you've got gas you could probably throw in there.
Pepper ball?
Yeah, you could get a pepper ball. There was like little vents in the door.
Sure.
So you could think outside the box. At the end of the day, if you can't do those things, I think I'm probably doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree. It worked. We're alive.
Yeah, it worked. He's alive.
Yeah.
I'll say this. If my dog wasn't there on that for sure, someone's getting stabbed. That dude had intentions of stabbing somebody, whoever was coming through that door. Someone's getting stabbed, and he's for sure would have got shot. I mean, that could have been a completely different outcome.
Especially once that door swings in. It's not like you can shut it. You're going to have to go and retrieve it.
100%. And I think like we talked about those 10, whatever that number may be, whatever, the multiple strikes that it takes. This guy knows we're coming in, right?
Yeah.
And he's in a 5 by 5 foot bathroom. So he's ready for us. It wasn't
dark.
like it was dark. It was pitch black. Like it was it wasn't pitch black, but it was definitely dark where you can still see his outline and, his figure. But yeah, he knows we're coming in. So at that point it's game on. But it really kind of reaffirms the fact that don't take anything lightly and have a plan for every situation. Because you don't want to be on the tail end of trying to catch up when shit's getting real.
Mm-hmm.
So that same night, actually, I don't know if you remember. Well, actually, we just talked about this. I ended up getting in a pursuit later that night, and the dude crashed foot bales into a backyard. I deployed my dog on that guy, who ends up biting him in the artery in his arm, and this dude was like spraying blood out of his arm. And luckily, somebody showed up, threw a tourniquet on him. And the medics showed up and they're like, dude, that guy would have died if you didn't put a tourniquet on his arm. I mean, it got him in the artery.
Yeah.
That was the same night as that. That was a wild night.
It was.
Anyways, canine to the rescue. Duh. How about you, dude? Do you,
mine's not as juicy. Mine's not as good. So I came from a small agency where I think it was me and like 9 others sworn. It was small. Not to knock small agencies, but it didn't meet what I had inspired to be when it comes to law enforcement. Kind of felt more like a CSO with a gun. Not to knock small agencies, we all need cops.
Yeah.
So when I came to our current agency, it was kind of a rude awakening. It was very different. I loved it. I wanted to go. I landed with an FTO that very nice guy, but was definitely not a go guy.
Yeah.
We'd catch a paper call. He'd be like, all right, let's go back and write it. And we'd sit there. I'd type as fast as I could and tones out. Something would come out. I'd be like, let's go. He would go, nope.
Yeah.
We got to wait here and finish your paperwork. Worst. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I can hear the radio going on. And I can hear everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And we go days off. And wife and I, with some friends, we go to the Garth Brooks concert. And who do I see? Chris Bosson and Kyle Schoberg.
Oh,
Do you remember that?
Brooks?
Yeah. And they're like, hey,
Vaguely.
look it's the boot that doesn't do shit. And I'm like, oh, that was the last thing I wanted to be thought as. Like, I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And
that was Boston?
It was
That
Boston,
had to have been Chris.
And then it was, fortunately you guys understood who I
They're
was
talking
with.
to the mic so people hear you.
Fortunately, you guys understood who I was with. And not to knock the guy. He was good at what he did. Just wasn't a proactive street cop. And you guys came around. You did. I don't know about Chris yet. It's still up in the air.
Yeah, it was fun times. I remember we went to I know you were on this one. It was like a mental health call where a dude called 911 and was like, there are aliens in my house. And he was a military vet and had like all sorts of rifles and stuff. And he was like saying he's going to like kill these aliens in his house. And so I think we all knew like, that's weird. That doesn't sound good. So we go there and we park like way down the street. And does this ring a bell to you at all?
Keep going. It's a little bit.
So we park down the street. It's like me, you, Chris, his FTO that he's talking about, and I think maybe our supervisor. And we're like trying to get this dude on the phone to tell him to like come outside and like come to us. And cause he's saying he's got like a rifle or whatever. And he's like tripping out on the phone. And next thing you know, like we see down the street, this dude is like bounding from like
trash can to trash can.
Yeah, like
I remember now.
Yeah, like trash can to trash can, and we're like, what the fuck is that? Is that the dude?
Or is it the alien?
Dude, and he had like a fairly big object in his hand, and he was holding it like a rifle at a low ready.
I do remember.
And I'm pretty sure he must have saw us, but like he was literally bounding, dude, from like car to car or like to a trash can, like taking cover. And he's like making his way to us. And we're like, holy shit, like what do we do now? This dude's coming towards us and we didn't know if he had a gun or not. And so I remember a couple of us like grabbed our rifles and like we went off and took cover behind a big tree in case he did come at us with a gun. And then he got up, I think he got like fairly close and we realized that like whatever he had in his hand, he like threw it on the ground and we're yelling at him. And then we go to grab him and then it turns into an argument between all of us because I think Chris was yelling at his FTO to tase him, and it just turned into a fight, dude, amongst like the cops of like, grab him, no, you grab him, like tase him, and ultimately the dude ends up getting tased, but that was wild. And we go back to his house, and dude, he had like rifles and shit.
I remember
lit all over his house, and I remember thinking, holy shit, if we would have went to that dude's house, that probably would not have been good for some of us.
No, for sure. But
do you remember that?
I do 100%, but it makes me think there's only so many things you can game plan, right? In that situation versus some of the videos that, that we talked about earlier today. Never have I trained for like, how are you going to deal with someone bounding at you as one person,
Dude, I know.
force bounding at you at 2:00 in the morning. It's like, you can't have that. Maybe we'll have that tonight for briefing conversation.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Because it'll happen.
I mean, you got to do something, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not letting this dude just
No, of course.
straight up bounding, like using tactics, advancing towards us is like, oh shit, well, this wasn't in the game. Like, I didn't think this was going to happen.
No, for sure. But to that point, I mean, you have to have some kind of rough game plan, right? So whether they're bounding, I think it's a good point. Whether they're bounding or they're coming at you, you have to have a plan, right? They're aggressing on you. So maybe
Absolutely.
you're splitting, you're V'ing out, and you're setting yourself up or your partners for an advantageous shot should it become, an OIS type situation or
Yeah.
But I think you got to do something. You can't just sit there and you're like, this is weird.
No, get off the X, find some cover and separate, right? Don't all go to the same spot. Give him multiple points of contact, and if shit goes sideways, then at least he has a couple things to focus on, not one area.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he ended up having a one of those like huge mag lights or whatever, was like silver in color. And luckily he ends up like throwing it down. But yeah, I mean, I think two of us ended up branching off with rifles, and we were ready. Like, if that's what he wanted to do, then okay. But it was kind of just a weird.
It was
weird. We have so many stories we could share. We could probably sit here for hours and go into some funny stories. Maybe one day we'll do that. But anyways, we'll wrap this up. You got to get going to work soon anyways.
I do.
Thanks for popping in here. What was it like being on your first podcast?
Love it. It was fun. I appreciate it. Had a good time. And
Any shout outs you want to give? I know he needs to, because every time he does one, he's always like, oh, dude, I forgot to give my kid a shout out or whatever.
You can start it off. Go ahead.
And my kid, he watches these. He's like, Dad, you didn't give me a shout out. So, Benny boy, love you, dude.
Yeah.
And I'll have to do the same. Otherwise, I'd be the shit dad on the
Absolutely.
group. So yeah, my kid's Jaden Carson.
Well, I can't forget the other ones. Now think I'm the shit dad. Ryan, Charlie, love you guys too.
Oh yeah, that's messed up.
But they don't watch. They don't watch it like he does.
Yeah.
I love them all. They're my little bastard kids. I love them.
Yeah, my kids, they're too young, but I mean, they're not watching these per se.
No,
Sure.
they don't
Maybe
even like
one day.
you.
Maybe
I've
one
seen
day.
them.
I bet Steph is going to watch this, so I better give Steph a shout out. She'll freaking kill me if I didn't.
Eva will watch it in his underwear.
Yeah, I have brought Everett in here sometimes, dude. Yeah.
And shout out to Boston.
Yeah. Dude, we got to get him. So I told him, I'm like, dude, you got to get a ticket, like fly up here. He needs to be at the table.
I would love that.
It would be, so Chris was the second, actually he was the first guest we ever had on this show. Like when we first started it. And of course it was a disaster. I forgot, we ended up taking a break halfway through, came back. I forgot to turn the camera back on. So then there was no video. He ended up getting COVID, like literally a couple days after that. And it was his transition to moving to Arizona. Dude, he was in the hospital for like 2 weeks. It laid him out, like damn near killed him.
Yeah. And then he was in the bar a couple weeks later with his oxygen tank, drinking whiskey sours.
With
The man's
Marlboro.
committed.
Cussing me out because I brought him on the show and somehow he ended up getting COVID. But I don't even know. Anyways, all right, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks, guys, both of you for popping in here. Hey, guys, don't forget, drop a comment in the video. Enter your chance to win the cool medic box. We'll throw in the gloves for you. We'll catch you on the next show, and be safe, be smart, and we'll see you later.